Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dylan, I'm your host, and this week I am joined by my blue collar badass because we're going to be talking some design build today and really why you should do projects in design build. Like last week, we talked about all the methods of construction, how you can deliver projects and those contract vehicles for it. And because we have an expert in design build here, we figured we'd talk about it. So, Matt, how's it going, man?
Things are good, Dylan. We are cruising through summer. It's hard to believe we're into August. It seems like just we missed July, I think. But things are good.
Yeah, for me, I think I just sweated all of July. Like it was over 100 degrees for most of the month here. So, like 4th of July was like 105.
Holy
So,
cow.
I don't think we've cooled down that much. We might have had like a, you know, few few day reprieve in there somewhere, but even now it's still like 98 degrees here. So,
Yeah, see, we haven't had a whole lot of like high heat days like that. I mean, we don't normally get that hot, but we only had a few days up in the mid to upper 90s. Most of it's been pretty temperate, but it has been the wettest summer that I can remember. I mean, it rains like 3 or 4 times a week, it seems. We have a project locally, not a design build project. But it's poured wall foundations for a car wash. You might know of it. And we got rain on, I think it was Monday. It came in like a friggin' monsoon and it filled the foundations. Like these things are 4.5 foot tall and it filled them in like an afternoon of just pouring rain. And it's like that at all of our sites. We're pumping water. That's the bulk of what we're doing this week is just pumping water out away from the work area and into a silt bag and trying to get rid of it. It's been insane.
well, and hopefully you can get a pump.
Right, right. You won't be able to go buy one. Like you better have them stocked up because Home Depot ran out a long time ago.
Oh man, yeah, that's bad when you can't get a pump. Well, now like the whole all part of Florida is underwater too with the
Yeah,
hurricane stuff. So
yeah,
people are trying to find a water pump. Not that they can pump their water anywhere; they just gotta wait for it to go away.
right. Now I think we've had four or maybe five now 100-year storm events this summer alone, which all the drain commissions are just sitting back in their chairs saying, "I told you, I told you." They're grinning ear to ear that we have all these giant, oversized ponds in every project, and now they're finally right. Okay, guys, you win. Chalk one up for the drain commissioner.
Yeah, you're happy when you need it. Just most of the time you're hoping you don't.
Yep, a big expensive hole in the ground for 99% of the time.
Hey man, but then you look at Florida, you're like, well, it's a good thing we got these big holes and a place to put water.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's some of the pictures I've seen of Florida especially are pretty brutal.
Yeah, water up to like half the garage door, to the top of or the bottom of windows on SUVs.
Right.
It's like,
But you still see Florida guy trying to drive through the puddles, through the lakes.
well, in real Florida man's got his fan boat.
Right, right.
I knew this would come in handy.
Heck yeah. Coonskin cap and all.
Here to save the day. Good thing
Oh,
Bush
let's get in.
floats.
Let's talk design build, man. Design and floats.
So now that I'm doing a bunch of design build projects and I can talk pretty well about the design bid build process, I thought it would be good to really go through why an owner would want to go design build versus, kind of the traditional route. And I think in the future, we can go down the integrated project delivery, slash CMC. I kind of lump those into the two. I know that's a completely different contract vehicle, but they're, you know, pseudo similar. There's going to be some different language in the two guarantee max price versus like shared. project risk reward, with IPD, um, where it's, everybody's really on the same team from the start. And IPD mimics a lot of design build pieces, but then they just share risk reward. So people are starting to like that kind of contract vehicle. And then GMP's just got their guaranteed max price, which, like I said last week, is a sales tactic that most folks use because they're like, no change orders. And I've never seen a project go GMP with no change orders. So it was great to sell the job. And then we don't actually do that in reality, you know.
Well, you should come up to Michigan then, and I'll show you some because I got a thing or two to say about that.
Yeah, well, these were like non-traditional, or like the GMP was with a design bid GMP build. So it
Oh,
wasn't using the design build methodology. It was, we're going to sell GMP but not execute it, design build with a GMP attached to it. So
gotcha. Well, I would agree with you then. In that case, they're bullshit, and it is a sales tactic, and it's honestly one of the harder things we do around here, because so much of what we do is true design build, 90+% now, that when we do go to hard bid something or, design bid build that method, like it's almost like we have to completely rewire our circuitry to operate in a different market, right? We go into hard bids with our design build mentality, trying to, coordinate and fix all the pieces ahead of time and do all the wonders of design build. But then you get, all these guys who live and die by hard bid who are just like, ha, schmucks, we're gonna exclude everything that's not in these drawings. And yeah, it's a GMP until one thing comes up that the architect missed. Then all of a sudden it's no longer a GMP.
yeah, and so let's talk about like, what a true design build should really look like versus basically it's design bid build by another name is how they've wrapped a lot of these. So in your mind, what should a true design build project actually look like? And both from the your side, right, the general contractor standpoint, who usually holds all the contracts for everybody, right? So the design team is subcontracted to you, and then all of your subcontractors. And like, so how does it look for you? And then we'll get into like everybody under you and how does it look like for them?
Yeah, so I mean, first off, you're right. There's a lot of firms that use the term design build as a marketing thing, and they couldn't be farther from the actual intent of what design build was supposed to be, originally. That's why we call it true design build, because we're not fucking lying to people. So in our world, like in our bread and butter projects, the owner will find us very, very early, or we find them, however it may be, usually before there's land, before any design has been done, a lot of times before any budgeting, they have no idea. They just have a vision, right? I need a building that does X, Y, and Z. And so in our method of contracting, they contract us and only us. And then, like you said, to echo your point there, we will then build the best design consultant team for each project. So we'll find an architect that's well suited for it. We'll find the structural, we'll find the civil engineer. Um, we'll get into MEPs in a bit, but we pick our MEP trade partners, per project. And we've gone as far as picking everyone. The La Casa project that we've talked about at length on the show now. We went to the table with everyone I just mentioned, but then we also had our steel contractor. So supply and erect. We had our carpenter. We had our glazer. We had, I mean, literally like everybody but the painter. And it was probably just because we couldn't get the painter to respond fast enough because they're typically pretty damn slow. But by doing that, right, we literally designed the entire project in one big collaborative team. And we can press on about the benefits of it and why it's I think the best method of contracting, but that's at the heart of it is you form this team, and don't get me wrong, all of our projects are not like that. But our bare base level design build is still us holding all of the design contracts at the very least. And it gives the owner, there's only one guy they need to yell at, right? There's one point of contact and you're looking at him right here.
Yeah, and even I mean that's the for true design build because you go back historically, and I think it's important to give context to it. Is uh you go look at like some of the oh god, I can't think of his name, the architect that has like all those flat buildings and stuff, Frank Lloyd Wright.
Right.
So you look at Frank Lloyd Wright buildings, like he was the master builder, so he was the architect but he was also contractor, and they call him like the master builder, right? In that time era was architect as general contractor, right? Granted, also most of those projects you didn't have electricity or indoor plumbing, like there was no MEP in those buildings to speak of. I mean, maybe some of Frank Lloyd Wright's later stuff, but you go back 150 years, it was traditionally like the architect was contractor in a way, or at least like owner's rep of, hey, we're going to design this, but we're also going to be the one to like help do everything on site and make sure things are going up the way that it needs to. And any coordination, granted 150 years ago, again, you had no MEP trades. It was literally architecture, structure, and that's it. And, clear a flat spot to build this thing. So you don't have the complexities that you do today, but I think it's important to go back historically. Like there was one guy that was in charge
Yeah.
of the project.
Yeah. And it's, so we had a orientation this week for my middle son. He's going to be a freshman in high school starting in a couple weeks. And like a lot of high schools, they've got, student artwork on the walls framed. And we're walking down this one hallway and there's this nice, pencil sketch of a building or something. And the caption underneath it was Frank Lloyd wrong, which, sorry, dad jokes, I guess, but I thought it was pretty hilarious at the time. I was laughing out loud walking through the halls. Um, what so design build at its intent is just that, right? A single point of contact, single source of truth that can manage the whole project for whomever. What it diluted itself into over the last 2-3 decades is really more of what we refer to as design assist at best. And that's where, and I'll speak freely about this. Schaefer Construction always advertised that we were a design build firm long before I was here. It's bullshit. We weren't. We were a great design assist firm, meaning that the architect would still hold all the power in the relationship. The client would hire the architect would find a Schaefer Construction, and then bounce questions back and forth and do kind of a pseudo kind of half-ass collaboration, right? Which is fine. I think that's still better than full-on design bid build. I think there's benefits there, but it lost the meaning of what design build is all about. And that's what we've really worked very hard in the last 7 years to kind of bring back and to show not just owners, but even our trade partners, and our design consultants. Like this isn't like it's not a power struggle, right? It's not me standing up on a mountain beating my chest like I'm the motherfucker, you listen to me. Like this is the way to do this, and we can all have a seat at the table. And I think that's what's been largely missing. And even still, there's a lot of firms that claim design build, and they're not. We were talking candidly or off mic about a local firm here that I thought all they did was design build. They advertise all they do is design build, and it turns out like it's not even close. Like they may as well just be plan spec builders because design build is only on their marketing fodder.
What I found in doing more and more like more true design build projects is, I'm putting designs together, working with the contractor. They give me everything, right? Because I'm working directly for the electrical contractor. Like, hey, we've got a building, we got all this stuff. Here's the mechanical loads. Let's work through it. Is now I get feedback like on a big industrial project. It's like, hey, man, like, give me feedback on like circuiting. Like, how do you want this thing circuited? And so now details that I would also not normally put into a project, I'm putting in but it helps those guys in the field. And I'm dealing with like the site superintendent for the electrical contractor, like, oh, I'm rolling off, cable and wire, like, hey, let's walk through this, and like, here's these circuiting, like, hey, I don't want to run bigger than a number 6, or I don't want, more than number 10s on these things. So it's like, okay, well, now I can make all my circuiting to help them execute it in the field, which great, like, you get what you want. I don't really care, but I have a design direction to go to, put constraints around it so that those guys can execute it better in the field. And there's a lot of things that either the contractor would figure out, or now you have an RFI piece in there potentially, right? So it's going to delay the project, whatever, a week, let's say, in an RFI back and forth, versus like, we're going to figure all this out in design. You're going to give me some constraints that you want, right? Hey, we don't want to do this, or we don't want to run bigger than number 3-inch conduit. Okay, that's fine. Like, great. We can make these decisions for some of these massive runs, or work through all this other utility coordination or whatever other thing that we're dealing with. I can do that all in design, so that basically by the time design stops and you guys are in the field doing your thing, like, you call me if there's any questions, or more than likely, like, I just won't hear from you, which great.
Yeah. I mean, not that we want to leave you alone into your devices, but that's a great project, right? Where everything's hashed out in the beginning, and it goes flawlessly. Now, does that happen often? Probably not, but there are definitely times, the more upfront time, and that's really where design build gets its power, right? It's the pre-con side. It's so much planning and so much coordination before you hit the dirt, which is different than the other models. A lot of hard bid, design bid build stuff, your guys, your people that you're working with, they don't know shit about shit until day one on the job site when they're having a foreman's meeting. And again, like, I'm not shitting on all of them. Some of them I am, but not all of them. I mean, it's just a different model. It's neither right, wrong, nor indifferent. But um, to get all those things figured out, and everybody's preferences, ahead of time, it just makes everything so much more efficient, so much smoother, which in turn doesn't just lower my stress level as an owner, which I appreciate, but it speeds up the project, right? We can build faster. It lowers costs because we're not making a bazillion changes in the field. So it's a better budget for the project, and everybody's generally happier, right? And if you want to get to the foo-foo side of it, like, when people have engagement and they know that their input is valued, they're a happier tribe of people working together. And that's just reality of it. And what we see is, you mentioned like the electrician that only wants to run 3-inch or less conduit. Well, on the first project you work with them, right, that may be a shock. That may be a surprise. You have to learn it. Like, there's a learning curve. But we start building this team, and now, we'll bring you to the next project, and we'll bring an electrician to the next project. And now you already know these guys, their quirks, right? And they know yours. And, eventually you just have this great, like, symbiotic relationship on a construction project that amazing things come of it.
That's just it, man. Is you, so long as everybody's on board early, so long as you have the time to coordinate through a lot of this, and everybody's, because now you're into the project, right? You got your project manager, your site superintendent or foreman for your specialty contractor, all your design folks into the project. They're figuring everything out, and like, again, they're spooling off wire and cable and conduit and all the things that they got to figure out. Your mechanical guys are building, ducts and doing their sheet metal work. You got your steel guys doing all their loads and calcs with the erection team, on how their bolt patterns are, right? To put these things together. And when you figure all that stuff out, to where once you get on site, everybody has a very clear picture of what's going to happen, what's going where, how this thing's going to get executed. Like, you don't need to call me, like, everything's been figured out. And then all the little minor stuff of, you know, Bob's not here today, right? The plumber didn't show up, or what area we're working in, like all the normal, like where we at today on the in the project to stay out of each other's way is just going to get like that's the normal flow of a project will get handled, or any other little minor thing will get handled. Any owner, change, so long as it's not super crazy, just gets handled by the team.
Well, you allow the actual blue collar badasses to do what they're best at, right? Put these super skilled tradesmen and tradeswomen in the field where they thrive, and just let them do their thing, right? It's not, you know, the foreman for the electrical contractor is having to stop and open up his 3,000 page spec book to see, which portion that the guy in estimating missed in the early stages. It's all laid out. There's a lot of, I'm not going to say it's not loose, right? But like we were talking before the show, like you don't have to spell out every fucking detail of every little minuscule connection and this and that. Let the guys who are true craftsmen in this trade, let them do what they do best, and trust in them that this is what they do day in, day out. They're better at it than I am. They're better at it than you are. So we let that happen. And it's just, that's the efficiency we see, right? It's when you try to detail every friggin' thing and you build out these impossibly long spec books that no human ever reads, that it just, it becomes more of a legality thing. It's a giant cover your ass than it is a productive use of a project.
Well, and here's the big difference as I see it. So the spec book is a COIA means methods. We're trying to find you and get you on something, right? If we have to, and if it comes down to it, right? And a lot of those are cookie cutter. We barely edit them. Like they get sent out, and it's a big pain in the ass whenever we have to like deal with specs, right? Like honestly, it is. Nobody likes them
Yeah.
except like the handful of architects that's their actual job as spec writers to like deal with all this. And again, those are on bid projects because they have to, and they got to do all the equals and all the material selection and all the shit architects have to handle. For the rest of us, especially on the MEP side, where like, dude, I really don't care what backbox you use or like what conduit or wire you use, but I need to see those submittals so that like you're not using some like weird shit. And you still probably could. I just have a data sheet that says you didn't, right? So, but with working directly for the contractors, like submittals go away. All the CA stuff goes away because again, I'm contracted to you, so you better be doing your job and executing the designs. But then it allows me to put more time into the drawings. So now I make better drawing notes. I make better references. I add extra details in there for anything that actually does need to be detailed out that should just be a drawing thing of, let's cut some more sections and elevations for you guys. Let's give you 3D views. Let's, give more of this stuff to like, let's coordinate with the precast where these holes need to go to run, our duct banks, whatever it is, like, in the same on the mechanical for all the openings in the roof, like for all their stuff. Hey, like we can give all of that information up front, or plumbing coordination of underground and making sure that all that's coordinated in a model prior to getting on site. So when those guys hit, the ground, they know exactly where their stuff's going to go. They can use all their laser dimensions and set pipe where pipe is supposed to go. And they know it's coordinated. They don't have to worry about anything. And so long as everyone did their job on dimensions and it's shown on a set of drawings, like those are like everybody's used to looking at drawings. It's when shit is not on the drawings or in a note on the drawings or detailed somewhere on the drawings and it's in a spec book that we're expecting. They're not carrying that thing around. I mean, it's in Procore or whatever these days, but they're not going to go and reference that. Like drawings are the thing everybody looks at. So let's just put more shit on the drawings.
So I got a great example of when that goes wrong on one of our current projects, a design build project, no less. our civil engineer, who candidly will not be our civil engineer very much longer, uh, he had some obscure ass note on the drawings about the approaches to the site, and it basically said, "See blank county detail dot dot dot," with that, and that's it. And it was, this much text on a full size set of drawings, a 30-page civil set, 40-page civil set, and it's one little note. Well, nobody saw it. We didn't see it. Paver didn't see it. Concrete guy didn't see it. And what that little note references is this effing absurd county that we're working in has a standard for their approaches of 10 inches of concrete underneath a 2 or 3 or 4 inch asphalt cap. So everyone priced the asphalt because everyone prices asphalt. Nobody prices this 10-inch monstrosity of concrete underneath it. And, luckily it wasn't like a catastrophic level failure, but it's just, I think, case in point of what you were just talking about. Like, just take the extra minute. And if you're going to reference some obscure, especially if you know what that thing references, like, you've been in this field long enough, dude, like, you should recognize that most approaches to a commercial site are not built this way. So if we have to do this, or if someone's going to require it, like, just show us a little detail, show us a cutaway, show us even in words, like, hey, heads up, you need 10 inches of concrete, just something, instead of just linking back to a spec somewhere that, now somebody has to go try and find this detail, this spec somewhere. And then, in our case, nobody caught it. So it's design build is not perfect either, but you weed out, I think, a lot of those instances by doing what we're doing, and by having this collaboration, and by giving your design partners the freedom to actually produce good drawings, with content in them, and not just the bare bones, because you don't want to get in trouble.
Well, and that's the other thing that I've found is when your team's like, electrical contractor, you hold my contract. Like, I work for you now, right? So what do you want? Right? Like, you are my client. The owner is pseudo my client. You're my client. So what do you want to see on these drawings? Right? Like, very different conversation versus like, owner's my client. I'm doing everything to protect their ass, on this. And I'm going to fight with the contractor at every turn because I work for owner and I'm trying to defend their interests. Well, now I work for electrical contractor who only wants to do a good job so that they get the next project and they have a good name and reputation in the industry. So, like, let me help you to do a good job for your client, and let me continue to work for you on the next project that you have. Like, that's as simple as it gets. But this goes back to like caring, and understanding also who I'm working for. Like, who holds my contract? Oh, you're paying my bill? Okay, good. Mr. Contractor, like, what do you want to see? Right? Like, how can I defend you in this situation because you hold my contract, not, somebody else. Like, you're my client. So my obligation is to you.
Yeah, I mean, you have to recognize that, like, we're all in this together. And yes, you have your obligation contractually, but, like, we all need each other to produce a quality project that succeeds, so that we can do the next one and the next one and the next one. And, GCs get a bad rap of not doing anything, right? Being, the paper GC who's just making money off of our backs and whatever. I saw some conversation on LinkedIn the other day, and something along the lines of, some guy was spouting off that, you can be a successful electrician with never have to work for a general contractor ever, and, spouting all this shit. And, like, maybe you can if you're doing service work, fine, have at it. But if you want to build great shit, like, you need the whole team involved. And we all have to be, I mean, it's client first, it's project first, always, because none of us will ever work again if we don't have that. But for you to succeed as the electrical designer means that my electrician's got to succeed, means that plumber has to succeed means that I have to succeed so that the owner succeeds. And it's really as simple as that. I mean, it's a philosophy shift into from what has become normal in the construction space, but it's really that simple. Like we're all working towards a common goal, and that is the project first. And that's it. And we can do that very, very effectively using the design build method.
Yeah, man, like you got to have the whole team in there. And I've been on projects with great general contractors. I've been on projects with real dickheads that just ruin the project for everybody.
For
You know,
sure.
it's like it was a shit GC, but there was a great electrical contractor. So project went pretty well for me, you know, because the guy that was, working on it and the mechanical stuff was fine. I was like the MEP project manager for this. And it was a big cluster of a renovation. It was like a $15 million renovation for 2 floors and, big lab spaces and everything. And, went fine. But because the electrical contractor was great and handled it, and the general contractor, like, I hated sitting in any meeting I had to with this guy. He didn't know shit, couldn't, coordinate his way out of a paper bag. And, and it's like in an old building where the floors weren't level. It's like, dude, you got to kind of like do some work here, man. This is, not simple. This building is very old, and we're putting like new high end like laboratory spaces in here. And like,
Oh,
like shit's got to be level for like air, control. So all of this has been like you need everybody on the team, and the better projects that you can do, and everybody's got a reputation around it. And the thing too is like if you're doing home stuff, like this doesn't apply to you, right? We're talking big commercial projects that are, you know, mid seven figures and up. Like this is what we're talking about here. This is not your homegrown whatever, and we're not dealing with like utility stuff either. Those guys play in their own lane as well. So this is commercial construction where you're dealing with big dollar amounts, big teams, a lot of people, and you doing the right thing is going to help you a lot in the long run. It might hurt in the short run on projects. Like it will be painful because you will care and you will agonize over those details, but you'll be asked to come back on the next project to help them solve their issues. And hopefully you can be in sooner on the next project to alleviate a lot of those problems when they inevitably show up.
it's just that, man. You got to recognize the value of being a part of the team. You want to go fast, do it by yourself, but you want to go far and to great places, you got to have a team with you.
And that's really the core design build.
I love it. Happy to answer any questions that anyone wants to drop in the show notes or reach out to us. I can talk about this all day long.
Yeah, man, I think the nuances around design build don't get addressed often enough, where most people are doing a pseudo piece of it, and with like how you end up contracting is MEP design team contracts through the contractors and then it goes up from there. But the like you have to contract your architect, structure, civil guy up front because that is the big pieces for a project. And then the MEP contractors can typically handle the rest, and they've got either guys in house or they team with a engineering firm to handle their side of it.
It's a beautiful method, and it's not one that I ever intend to really stray from.
When it works, it works,
That's
and
right, man.
there's contractors like single trade contractors in one state doing hundreds of millions of dollars in design build work, like specialty like electrical contractor doing hundreds of millions in a single state doing just design build. So you can build a very big business doing just design build work.
100% you can. Watch me.
So with that, guys, it's going to be this episode of the Construction Corner podcast. We'll cover other design methods here later this month. what is wrong with them and why you lose money and time on every single one of those other methods. So without further ado, this is this episode. Until next time.